Good morning. It's Pastor Josiah, and it's been a while. It's been 4 weeks. It's Saturday, the 15th of August in the morning, and I've bribed my children to go outside. We have just wrapped up a 4-week, call it staycation, but maybe that's not accurate or honest. I'll get that in a second. But I thought I'd take some time to catch you up on my own life and what's going on with the Shelton Church of the Nazarene, but also, frankly, what's going on with churches all over this country. So, 4 weeks has gone by. We've heard from a couple of great friends of mine, pastors, soon-to-be pastors, ministers of the gospel, all who ironically are women. That actually wasn't initially the plan, but I'm glad it happened because in our denomination, we need to see more of that. We support women in clergy. But over the past 4 weeks, I've taken a very intentional break. It's easy to call it a vacation, a staycation, but truly, I've just needed to take a step back. Basically, without having to get into too much of the gritty details, pastoring through a pandemic is more stressful than anything I could have ever imagined it to be. So for my own mental health, my own emotional and spiritual health and well-being, I needed to just take a step back. And fortunately, I have a board and staff and an amazing district superintendent named Jerry Kester who all wanted to support me in getting right, in being healthy, in taking a step back and in just catching my breath, truly, and really considering what it is that God is trying to say. Because part of the stress of everything is not just that there's a lot going on with the pandemic, but there's a lot of distraction and noise, and it's really easy to let things get drowned out by things that are less important. It's interesting. There's a story in the Bible I often go to in times like this. It's about a guy named Elijah, and he was a prophet, and he said some things that made people upset. He called some people on some stuff because that's what prophets do. And as a result of proving God existed, he had to run for his life. But that's not really the part that I focus on. The part that I focus on is Elijah needing to take a nap because God said he's a little cranky, and then telling Elijah to go to a mountain and that God was going to speak to him. And then all these crazy, amazing natural events happen. But God wasn't in the fire, the wind, the earthquake. He wasn't in all these amazing natural phenomena. God was in the silent, still whisper. And what's so profound to me about this instance in Scripture is that if Elijah wasn't careful, he could have missed what God was saying. If Elijah wasn't carefully listening, he could have totally gone about his day without knowing anything, not knowing that the creator of the universe was trying to tell him something important. What I really take, what's really sobering about this story, but also encouraging, is that God doesn't want to compete for our attention. Now, a lot of other things do, but God doesn't. So for the past 4 weeks, I've needed to take some time eliminating distractions. I've needed to spend time focusing on my family, my wife and kids. I needed to take a step back from the things that were causing me to behave in a way that was clearly caused by an overload of stress. So for the past 4 weeks, I've made some pretty significant shifts in my day-to-day, and we'll see how they continue, but the goal is that they do continue. One of the biggest things is, as a pastor, this may be something that you don't hear pastors admit a whole lot, but I don't know why. I'm sure it's because of the pedestal people put pastors on, but for the past 4 weeks, I've seen a therapist. That's the first time in my life I've officially, I'll say officially because I've spent time with people that are counselors, but they haven't officially been my therapist. First time I've been officially in therapy. So of course, because this is the type of person I am, anytime something goes a little haywire and it has to do with me, I'll just say something silly like, well, that's why I'm in therapy. Doesn't always make a whole lot of sense, especially if, me and my wife and kids are driving around and I get us lost and my wife's like, why didn't you just follow the map? And I say something silly like, oh, this is why I'm in therapy, dear. But it makes for some fun comic relief. And sometimes we have to laugh even at ourselves. But truly, these past 4 weeks were necessary. And I think it's something that's important for us to reflect on in light of the story like Elijah, but also in light of the numerous times Jesus just took a break. Jesus knew his own limitations. He realized he could not continue at the trajectory he was going at, that there was just too many things to try to worry about, that he first and foremost needed to worry about where he was at, what his emotional, mental, and spiritual health was like, that he probably more than once needed to take a break from 12 maybe stinky and smelly guys who asked a lot of questions. Weirdly, I can empathize with that. I don't have 12, I have 4, but they're stinky and smelly and they ask a lot of questions. But because I want to be a good father and love them well, much like I'm sure Jesus wanted to be a good leader, a good discipler, a good rabbi, I need to make sure that I am in a good position to lead, that I am not compromised mentally or emotionally or even spiritually, that I am doing what is necessary to continue to let that image of Christ be restored within me. Paul talks about that. They talk about throughout the New Testament that I continue daily to try to deny myself, to take up my cross so that I can fully and completely follow Jesus. So that's kind of it this morning, folks. That's my story in a nutshell, and I wanted to share because maybe some of you haven't noticed, because it's all new and different, because we're in COVID-19 times. And all of this, man, if I don't hear this word ever again, I'll be perfectly happy. But we're in unprecedented times. But truly, I wanted to make an explanation of myself for you, because I am your pastor. These past 4 weeks were necessary for me to continue healthily pastoring. Maybe more importantly, healthily be a father and a husband. And I want to thank you, church family, for even though you maybe didn't know it, for allowing me to take this time to do what is necessary to be healthy. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm perfectly healthy, that I am magically transformed, that over these past 4 weeks everything is fixed and all is better. Because obviously the outside world is loud and there's a lot going on. But I think it might be important for us to take a lesson from the early church over the next months and years and decades perhaps, and understand that while the world outside can be full of chaos, while the world outside can be full of influence and distraction, that we are at our best when we are together, when we're united, when we're not easily divided. And I've used those words before and I will continue to use them again, because being divided is different than disagreeing on masks. Being divided is when we don't have the same goals in mind. Being divided is what it looks like when we let others give us labels that pit us against one another. Labels come in all shapes and forms nowadays, but what's great about the church is that we can still gather in some unique way. So for the sake of celebrating that, of celebrating what it means to be the church, even though many are hung up on going, we're going to do more things like this in the coming weeks and months. And we're going to celebrate that we can still do something to gather together. So moving forward, maybe we'll call it something tongue-in-cheek, like I'm still here, because it's maybe important to name it in a way that's accurate and authentic. But in the coming weeks and months, I would invite any who are willing, and I might have to just come and ask some of you, if you're not willing to volunteer yourself, you might get voluntold, to share your story, to share what's been going on amidst this crazy time in life that none of us could have anticipated and none of us were prepared for. To share how you were doing, honestly, without a filter. To share what you think maybe God is still trying to tell you if you've been able to take time to listen. And maybe, very importantly for all of us to hear and celebrate, where you still see God at work in the midst of the chaos. I think this is something we need right now. We need the community that so many of us long for, and because there's so many extracurricular considerations about how we can gather, maybe this is something we can still do despite all the chaos that's going on, so that we can feel like we are together in this storm, in the midst of this craziness. So I hope some of you will be brave enough to share, and I hope the rest of you will be willing to listen, because truly I'm not terribly interested in hearing myself talk every week, but I'm very interested in what's going on in every one of your stories. I'm sure through that we can learn what God is still doing. Through that we can gather together in unique ways, and through that we can continue to be a church that is not so easily divided, but that is united in the cause of serving Christ, of doing the kingdom building work that we are called to do, of making disciples in the nations, of loving God with our everything and loving our neighbor as ourselves. But once again, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I know not all of you realize that is what has been going on. And for those of you that maybe have tried to call or email, I'll try to get to it soon. I do watch my kids a lot, and it's hard to write emails and text and call, but I will try my best to get back to anyone who has reached out and who hasn't been able to touch base with me over the past 4 weeks. And I would like to give a special shout out to the amazing ladies that have been running things while I've been away, Cecilia and Shelby and Maya. I am incredibly grateful for the staff that you guys are and what you've been able to do to continue the work of this church in my leave of absence, staycation. I don't know what to call it, honestly. My getting right with Jesus time? Let's call it that. My getting right with Jesus time. But thank you to everyone else, to the board, to the church, to everyone who, whether they knew it or not, was giving me an opportunity to do just that, to get right with Jesus. I'm excited, despite all the crazy, for what's to come. I'm excited to hear your stories. I'm excited to hear what God is doing in your lives. I'm excited at what God may teach us as we share life together in a digital way. And I'm excited at potential future opportunities that we will share with you about what we can do to continue to gather, to fellowship, to worship, to disciple, and to be the church that God has called us to be in times such as these. Thanks again, church family. You're in my thoughts and prayers. It's great to be back, digitally even. I look forward to what God has in store. See you soon.